Second question we have is, we do customer research all the time. What kind of research beyond this do we need in order to enter into a strategic plan with all the information needed? And actually, we have a second question that came in that does fit into this, and I'll read that so we can kind of go with both of them. I find that many organizations that do strategic planning really don't do a good job with the environmental scan, especially the external component. Do you have any suggestions or tools or templates to help you to successfully facilitate this process? And I will add that question to the whiteboard right now. And Cammy, we'll go ahead and have you answer that.
Okay. So, yeah, the customer, when we engage for our consulting engagements and go out and go off-site with companies, a lot of times we do a robust kickoff type of activity, a lot of discovery, a lot of assessment before we get in there. And a good percentage of the time, companies say that they have plenty of research, they've got a lot of customer research, that we don't need to spend a lot of time on that. People really want to just jump in, with both feet and get the strategic, retreats going and such. But in order to be able to really make use of the time, and we know that that time is extremely valuable, is to understand that there's certain things about our approach to strategic planning that we believe are really important to vet out. And it goes with the balanced scorecard approach. And so understanding where your organization stands with your employee learning component, with your customers, of course, with your processes, and what is going on with the way that your finances are aggregated and measured and such. Those are all components of the balanced scorecard, and we need insight at each one of those levels as much as we can before we get into the retreats to make the most use of the time to where we come out of the retreats and we have something robust and that is one step away from, an executable plan. So in order to do that, a lot of the customer research might already have, information to the balanced scorecard tiers already in it. Questions like, how long do you have to wait to get responses, to your inquiries on our services or on our products? How long does it take for someone to get back to you for, making something better, be it a, replacement product or enhancement in service? That's a measurement that you can apply towards and feedback that you can apply towards processes, for example. Another question of how existing research might be able to fulfill that employee learning component of the balanced scorecard is how knowledgeable are people when, you call in with an issue? How many times do you have to be transferred in order to get answers to your questions? How quickly do you feel that you have had a sufficient response to your issue? Those kind of things. That talks a little bit about process, that last question, but all of them talk about how well-trained your employees are and how empowered your employees are, and at what point of frontline interaction, do you need to make sure that your employees have, X set of knowledge. So it's that kind of stuff. It's really, it goes beyond just research that's focused on the customer, which is really important, but making sure if your research is not already incorporating that, look at the balanced scorecard. Figure out how you can ask questions with your existing research that fulfill the principles of the balanced scorecard. And if you can't do that as an organization, spend a little bit of time and reach out to the tools. I know we have some tools online with the environmental scan and doing SWOTs, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats assessments. Go online and see what tools are available to you. We have a lot of them, but there's others out there that you can start to deploy now to be able to make sure as you're going into that retreat that you have all the information you need to come out with a real robust plan. Erica, what are your thoughts on that?
A couple of things, and then I'll answer the enviro scan question. I was trying to figure out on this whiteboard how to draw concentric circles, but maybe I'll provide a word picture instead. So one of the things I always think about when I'm thinking about going into a strategic planning engagement is the levels of information that we need and where the information fits, because I think that helps, for me anyways, provide a mental model about where the information plugs in, and then as Cammy was talking about how we use that information within the context of the plan, and we like the balanced scorecard because it gives us a robust, holistic perspective. Okay, so backing up for just a second, if we think about a bullseye in our mind's eye for just a moment. So in the center of the bullseye is our company, so that's our company information. We go out one circle, and that would be customer information. We go out a circle from that, we have market/industry information, and we go out a circle from that, and we have our environmental or operating environment information. And within each of those circles, if you will, there's a set of questions and data points and resources, et cetera, that we use to essentially populate each ring of the circle. And sometimes, and this gets to one of the questions that was proposed, sometimes we need a robust information that radiates all the way out through through this concentric circle idea. But sometimes we're just updating our plan, and we don't necessarily haven't seen a whole lot of changes in hypothetically in our operating environment, and maybe we don't need to go do a full-blown environmental scan. And just again, hypothetically, depending upon where you are in your planning and where you are in your strategic thinking and all that jazz. So my first point on this whole conversation about external research is maybe kind of yourself drawing your concentric circles and figuring out, what are the business questions that you need to answer related to each one of those rings, if you will. That's the first thing that we do when we're working with organizations. And the reason that we do that, and we were just having this conversation yesterday, the reason we do that is because sometimes a strategic planning engagement can be rife with rabbit trails, if you will, or rife with things that don't produce useful. It's not a useful exercise. It was just an exercise because it's part of the planning process, and we did it last year, so we're doing it again, and it's not really adding anything to the strategic decision making. So we try to get away from that by saying, just because there's a set of things in strategic planning that you think you're always supposed to do, maybe we need to apply it appropriately to our organization first and make sure that it fits with what we need to do now when we're thinking about our company and where our company is and the strategic decision making our company needs to make right now. And so how do we do that? We do that by clarifying what business questions we need to answer in order to have the right information at our fingertips in our offsites. And my thought process on that is the way to do that is kind of thinking about it in these concentric circles, because that starts to bucketize the type of information and then articulate really, instead of going on a fishing expedition, really answering specific business questions and going and getting the information that you need to answer those questions. So that gives us the answer to the original question related to what kind of research we need beyond customer research. Certainly, Cammy's point about the employee component is that, company's in the center, so that employee information is the first part of that. Answering the second question that was asked related to the environmental scan, so we're out in that further ring, if you will, and as our participant aptly probably noted, is it can be a really laborious process to do a good environmental scan, and but a good strategic plan rises and falls on our intentionality and mindfulness around what really is happening in the external environment and what we're really going to do about it, as opposed to just kind of giving it, just kind of blowing it off because it's perhaps one of those things that is too hard to deal with, such as, for example, some of the organizations we're working with right now dealing with this question of what a long-term recession may or may not mean to our organizations is something that people just sometimes can't get their heads around and is too hard to deal with. So an environmental scan brings that to the forefront, absolutely. And my recommendation related to tools and approach to do a good environmental scan, and I'm trying to think. We actually adapted an environmental scan model out of David Akers' Strategic Marketing Management book, and I'm blanking on the actual title right now, but we'll provide that resource when we send out the notes from today. But in that strategic marketing book, he has a good template on conducting an environmental scan, and I actually think it's probably the best one that I've seen, and we've taken that model and adapted it slightly. But it absolutely goes through the key business questions that you need to answer if you're doing a full-blown environmental scan, and actually also leads you to a diagnosis or to a set of conclusions, which is the other problem with an environmental scan. So what is it telling us, and what are we going to do about the information? And so I would highly recommend checking out that book. It's been really helpful to us, and I'll certainly provide that resource when the notes come out. The other question that someone asked is how to successfully facilitate that process for the environmental scan. And my recommendation is doing it, of course, with a small group, and you probably know that as well, and iterating on a really specific outline. And again, I would recommend the outline from the David Akers book. So happy to pick that up further, but those would be my recommendations.
Well, thank you, Erica and Cammy.